so happy to have on Matt Musty of Train, who's the current drummer. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. I'm glad you waited a couple minutes so I could pee. I'd be squirming the whole time.
Don't worry, it's not like on stage in front of 18,000 people. Before
Oh,
we get
that happens like every third show is I'm on the microphone to my drum tech and stage left, like, where's the nearest bathroom? Because I'm the acoustic number. I gotta run.
Wow. Before
Yeah.
we get started, by the way, July 10th, since the majority of my people are from Indiana, but the people elsewhere, look at train or reospeedwagon.com and you can find out where the tour is going on. But for my Indianapolis friends or Purdue friends, Train and REO Speedwagon are coming on July 10th. That's a Wednesday night to Ruoff Music Center. So if you're interested, make sure you check them out and get some tickets there. So
Which
just
that
wanted to put
venue
that
used
in.
to be called like something else, right? It used
It
to
was
all these venues
Clips,
have these great ones, great old
Clips,
names.
and then Mud Creek, which if you ask anybody,
Yeah.
7-year-old beer drinker at a concert like last night, is like, it's Mud Creek to me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Every town has that shed with the old classic name, and now it's owned by like some bank or a mortgage center or an insurance place. Like,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Ruoff Mortgage Center. Yep.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
one last night I
In
was at.
Boston, it's Great Woods. Great Woods, and now it's like, Bank of America Pavilion or something.
Boo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Live Nation owns it all too.
Yeah.
So take us through a little bit. How did you get started? By the way, this already feels like a more generic conversation instead of an interview, which I like because that's what people like a lot more. How did you get started with music growing up?
Yeah. Kind of pots and pans, kind of the pots and pans story. My mom is a 50 plus year church organist. And so I would kind of my brother and I would go to church with her in the mornings and turn pages for her, turn the music pages. And so that's how we kind of learned how to read music and the shapes and the flow and of official, real, classic, legit music. And then the other end of that is that my dad is like a bluesy jazz guitarist of the same amount of years. And so I got kind of both ends of a really cool musical spectrum right away. There weren't any drums in the house yet when I was, first learning about music and becoming interested, but it was shortly thereafter. So it was always around. There were always guitars and pianos in the house, and I was always curious and was listening to 90s music with my brother, and it kind of spiraled out from there.
Do you have a favorite 90s band? I mean, Train's a 90s band, but any others?
I mean, Train was part of that mix for sure. Third Eye Blind was in there. Our Lady Peace was one of my favorite bands. Still is a favorite of mine, and I know a couple of those guys, and they're lovely. But yeah, that era really spoke to me, and people my age, I think, would consider that a pretty great thing. The classics, the Nirvanas, the Oasis, and all that stuff. But
Foo
really,
Fighters.
Foo Fighters, sure, all that. And yeah.
And that gets me actually started. I actually want to discuss briefly with you is, do you have a drummer that you were inspired by? Dave Grohl, maybe Ringo Starr?
All of the above. I tend to go more the like less trained drummers. I go to like Mick Fleetwood and Levon Helm, that those guys kind of, and Ringo. Those guys kind of, as I get older, it's less about the amount of notes you can play, but more what are the right notes to play. And those guys I think are of that genre and just legends of music.
No doubt. So take us through a little bit for you. What's it been like being in the scene, of course, in LA, joining Train, of course, in 2019, if I'm correct.
Oh,
What's
you
it
are
kind of,
correct. Holy cow.
and I have no script in front of me, by the way. So
Wow.
I memorized it the night before. That's why whenever I email someone, I'll just say this briefly because it's your interview, but whenever I email somebody and I get that close to like, I really appreciate what you're doing, but I can't come on, and I'm like, can you do it in like 5 months? And like, still can't do it. It hurts because before I even reach out or email somebody, I've at least done 20 minutes of a brief research before I even
Right, right.
emailed you. Or Orlando Magic going right out on just before you.
Yeah.
So it hurts a little bit because it's like I did a little bit of research there. I found your
Yeah.
contact information. Like
Yeah.
I could have called or walked a dog in that time. So it always hurts a little bit. But yeah, for you, of
Yeah.
course, you've been with the band since 2019. What's it
Yep.
been like?
Well, let's first talk about you a little bit. This is you're going into journalism. It's your
Yes,
degree.
at a historically STEM university, which
Yeah.
I is a little bit tough to make friends. I'm not gonna lie because they look at it as I'm an engineering major and then you're a comms major. Like what's going on here, you know? But
I
I tell
see.
them, look at all my interviews. I don't think this is a
Yeah.
joke. I think this is going somewhere.
Yeah, and I think you're right to kind of throw it all against the wall and see what sticks, and you're gonna get a ton of no's that way, but that's part of, any career, including mine, is a lot of no's along the way, and you get used to hearing it, and, it beats you down, but it also you learn something each time. So, if that's any sort of guide, if I can help it or shed any wisdom, that's a good one. Don't get dismayed by the no's because you're gonna hear plenty of them, and it's not a bad thing necessarily. You're putting yourself out there, you're taking the shot.
And for you, of course, which appreciate you sharing that. What is something that helped you through any no's in your career to get to where you're at today now with train since 2019, of course?
It kind of fuels me. I talk about this among friends, it's very serious of like, and maybe it's like slightly an illness up here, but every time I hear no, it's more of like, okay, let's fuel that fire. I love hearing no because I'm going to prove it to you twice as much by the time. I've got a great no story if you want to hear it.
Please.
Um, I was auditioning. I can't name the MD who was running it or the band that it was for, but I would say about your age, maybe a couple years older, but I had just moved to LA fresh out of college, like um very young and thought I could hang and I got the opportunity to go on an audition in LA. This was 2009. Um And it was a friend that I had gone to college with, it was his boss, and he was the MD, and I got there, and I had really prepped, I had, like, really done my homework, or so I thought, It was on in-ears, which was a big different thing for me that I had never tried before, which are these basically headphones that you plug in and you're playing to a click track and backing tracks. This is something that happens in the pop world quite a bit. Um Anyway, long story short, I auditioned, I sucked, and the MD was like, You're not ready for this. You're not old enough. You shouldn't be in this room. You should leave now." And it was one of those moments where it bummed me out and threw me for the biggest loop because I thought, here I am. I've graduated from music school. I know everything. This is a home run. This is my time to get the gig. It all adds up. I'm 21. I'm in Los Angeles. I don't have any fucking money, so I need money. But here we go. This is where my career starts. And then for it to be ripped away, this plan that you've made and a huge no. And in fact, a really unclassy, terrible way to say no to a young kid. But it made me kind of regroup, go back to the practice room, figure this stuff out, get better, and it fueled that fire because it angered me basically, and it fueled my fire out of just spite. I was like, I got to get something good because to screw that guy over, I want him to know one day. Not today, obviously, but one day he's gonna know that something happened with this kid that was awful to. And he was right, but he was awful about it. So it even made me hold on to that in a really steadfast way from that point of okay, I got to focus in on my career and what I do.
And I kind of have a little story like that too. I
Yeah.
was at Purdue going in. I had a interview commitment from a football player, which again, college football players, you'd expect them to come on, especially a kid's show at your school.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'll do it. Just email this person to get confirmation. I emailed him and he was like, we don't allow people to do outside interviews. And I'm thinking, well, even though I'm an outside interview, I'm going to this university. So I'm pretty inside, right? Like I live on
Right.
the campus. And then I caught him on the phone, and I'll never forget. He was like, "Well, a lot of," I was like, "I had on Lou Holtz, the former Notre Dame football coach, and blind." He's like, "Yeah, a lot of those people are kind of irrelevant." And I'm thinking in my mind, well, no matter if it's true or not, they're still big people. Well,
Yeah.
followed by that 3 months later, which again, my show is not huge, so I can't say too much. But 3 months later, I had on Dance Mom at 3.9 million followers, and every single girl, if I walked up to any girl in the world in my age range, they literally say OMG. So that's like that one interview there. Almost would be like saying here, so I was like,
Wow.
Dance Moms, you've probably heard that show. Like it
Yeah.
is like it was the girls emit it was their girls show that they watched how guys
Yeah.
watched fishing shows.
Yeah.
Anyways, though, it just kind of inspired me to like take a huge risk when I thought I had no
Yeah.
chance getting this person on. She's way above my numbers. There's 0% chance. Even you too, train way above a number of a college student. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Oh
But
my God.
hearing that
My
from
absolute pleasure.
somebody kind of did hurt, but look what
It
it turned
does.
into since we're still doing the show. And I'm not number one in the world. I'm not even remotely close. But to even be at this point, I think I'm proud that I've been able to get interviews for my people who like music and will listen to this one. And if the guy did look at my show, I think he might scratch his head a little bit harder this next time, a year and a half later. But
Sure. Yeah.
kind of a
And
story like you said.
yeah, I love proving it to people. I love that part. But really, it's just like, it's nice to, in that moment, you can either, it does hurt no matter what, but you can either take it to heart and let it demolish you, which I've seen. I've seen, I have very close people to me that are, did I just get a thumbs up?
Yeah.
Zoom. I have very close people to me who have been kind of chewed up and spit out a little bit, and who it threw them for a, and continues to throw them for a big mental loop. Or you can let it, like you did, thicken your skin a little bit and help in its own weird way. In that you can learn something from that experience, even if it's small, and even if it's what not to do, and how not to treat people. You did learn, and so, you know, take it in stride and keep chugging like you're doing. Like, keep asking, keep plugging away. That's awesome. I'm so glad that you asked. And also, you hit me up through my website, which I didn't even know was still up.
Wow. Well, yeah, and that's the thing too, is for me,
You're resourceful.
I've never, and I try to not do this if I can find an email, but
Yeah.
I've straight up texted people. Like I texted Mark Cuban. I have not gotten a response back from him. Now I
Yeah.
can say I've had another NBA owner though, so maybe if we're going forward on that, who knows? But
That's true. You're a
just
wonder kid. I mean, like, you're at Purdue. You're a sophomore.
yep.
See, I do have the script in front of me. It's just over there. Just kidding. But that's such a big resume for a young guy like yourself. That's awesome.
And some people would look past and be like, "You're not an engineering student. Like you're gonna fall off in the year." And I'll
Yeah.
see you as my secretary at your front desk over there. But again, for me, until it's over, I'm gonna keep going full speed ahead. I tell people, and
I
when
think
I'm
that's the
not
right
doing
move.
this, I'm an intern at the state house, paid. I'm fortunate for that, and being 19, I'm just grateful that I've been able to make it to a semi point to where I look like I'm going in the right direction at the moment. Never take
What a
anything for
cool thing.
granted, but at the
Yeah.
moment, it appears I'm going in an okay direction. So,
Yeah, and you take those losses and know that you're still going in that direction, and you'll take the wins too. But just as humans, we kind of concentrate on the wins less. We always remember like my audition story. I'll never forget that, and I tend to forget the bigger moments. I'm getting better about soaking it in a little bit, and that's a learned thing, and we all will do that, but we all, just by human nature, just concentrate on the no's and the losses and like the bad things. It's like a poker player who uh who only remembers the bad beats. It's such a thing, and they don't remember winning millions of dollars. They're like, oh yeah, I don't remember that hand, but I remember exactly the hand where I lost everything.
no doubt about it. And for
Yeah.
you, of course, what do you kind of enjoy? Producing music, kind of, or do you enjoy performing in front of crowds?
I love both, and I have a great balance of it right now. That's something that I'm valuing a lot more in life these days is this balance with Train. It's such a great, I guess you could call it a job. It's such a great job in that we're only gone, we probably play 70 to 80 shows a year, and most of them are in a really close summer tour kind of way. We knock off a lot in that zone, but we're not stressed about it. We're not worried. We're having fun out there. And then we get to be home for a lot of the year. So the pacing isn't one of these younger pop artists maybe who are like, okay, we've got an album out. We're going to be gone for 2 years. Say goodbye to everyone forever. It's like, no, we'll be back in a couple months. And that's the long tour, you know? So it's a really good thing. And that allows me that time being home. Yes, I'm working on the band stuff and we're doing private, gigs and rehearsals and different things and sessions and recording music. Um, but when I'm home, I'm also able to produce and write with other people. And I'm in Los Angeles, which is a great music community that I love. I have a lot of dear friends here. And really, I stay plenty busy, just doing and now producing too, like, you know, word goes around quick in the industry, and in LA even more. It's like, this is a small town. It's not some big city. It's really a small town of like 60 or less people in the music industry who make my who relate to my job in recorded music, whether it's as a drummer, a co-writer, a producer, or someone I'm sending tracks to in Nashville. Even they know the 10 people that are close in my circle here. uh Word goes around fast, and if someone hears that you're producing and that you're good at it, you'll start working more.
No doubt. That's
It's still word of mouth. It's not anything else. I think with an artist, like an emerging artist, it's TikTok and all this other stuff. But for someone who hits stuff with sticks, it tends to still be this word of mouth, and like some of that other stuff is almost a strike against you if you're like trying to be a influencer drummer or that, versus like a guy who works, say,
right,
you know.
which is really an interesting thing, of course, with how the music industry is going.
Yeah.
However, though, I'll tell you the truth, these people that have, 50 million monthly listeners on a single song,
Hmm.
they're not the ones that are filling out the big venues. And I'll tell you why. I won't say who, but somebody on my show who has 17 million monthly listeners right now. One song that's had, I think, 300 million on Spotify in the last 4 months, which is incredible, by the way. It's a great song. Love the guy. He was playing at a venue the size of 500, which, hey, no problem with that. That's more than most people. That is a successful artist right there. I'm going to be very clear about that.
Yeah.
However, though, some people would say, oh, he's in the spotlight more than this band, when in reality, this other band might be playing that's from the 80s, might be playing at a venue that's still 18,000 people. So, again, there's such a difference in what social media is and what's historical nature like that. Um,
Yeah, the
and
quick
again, more
hit is
power to him,
awesome.
by the way,
Yeah.
which congrats, by the way. Most people don't even make it to that point. So congratulations to him. He's a great guy. I think he's going to have
Yeah.
a lot more big hits.
Yeah.
But, social media is not everything. And that's just kind of one example there.
Yeah, I agree. It's really surprising, especially with like the Train thing and like the quote unquote 90s bands. There's many who can't fill a room like Pat can, and a couple that are in the next level, So it's fascinating to see what rises to the top over time. I think I'm really grateful just for this opportunity to play like Drops of Jupiter every night. That's, to me, is a song that like is timeless and gonna stand the test of time. And Calling All Angels, things like that. Really, it's Train is just a smattering of hits. He's a student of pop music, but really the thing that's like, I think, has tied his career together for just decades now is this timeless nature that people of all ages can gravitate to. And it's really cool to tap into that and to like pay tribute to those drum parts, and like really kind of be inside the music and be in that moment with, say 18,000 people or whoever's in the house that night. It's such a wonderful, music is such a such a universal language in that way.
No doubt. And of course, I gotta say my favorite song is "Drive By" or "50 Ways to Say Goodbye." Actually,
Hmm.
love a lot of their songs, a lot of your
Love,
songs,
love
but
those. Yeah.
yeah, I really like that album.
Yeah.
But it's
There's so
also the
much good
logo
music
on the
there.
highway too. Just the album
Hmm.
cover of it, that sparks to me so much. But
Yeah, I was
also
a fan.
what?
I didn't play on that record, but I'm such a fan of that record
Yep,
too. California 37. Yeah.
no doubt.
Big
And for
one.
you, of course, what is it like um being on a tour? It's intense. Like you said, when it is the summer, it goes very quick, feels long at times.
Yeah.
What's it just kind of like? I mean, from the tour bus experience to being at a large arena or a large
Yeah.
amphitheater, what's that entire experience like? If you can just kind of give us a small rundown.
Well, it's not, it is intense in that you're not home. Like being home is something really special and really great, but it's the best summer camp you could ever ask for. You're on this like the whole thing is when people come home from tour, they're like, "Oh yeah, I gotta like figure out how to do dishes and laundry again," because you're so spoiled out there. You wake up like in our case, we travel well. There's plenty of room and space for everybody. The accommodations are beautiful, off days, great hotels. You wake up, you walk into you literally what you're a zombie. You walk off the bus and there's signs with the train logo on it that says
Wow.
everything this way because you're at a different venue every day. And then it says catering left, band to the right, Pat's room is upstairs. Like everything is mapped out. Everything, your hand is held from the moment you wake up till the moment you go to bed. And the only moment that it's not held is when you're like throwing frisbee at night. And it's like, I'm going to go do my own thing. It's a summer camp. It's easy. It's not hard. It's beautiful. The hard thing is missing family, missing my wife, but the greatest thing ever is that you get to see many of your friends once a year, once every couple of years that you wouldn't otherwise see. Like I have a friend, a dear friend who just moved to Fort Worth, Texas. I'm going to see him this summer. And everyone in LA was like, "Oh man, we'll probably never see you again, bro. I hope you come back." And it's like, I'll see you in 3 months, dude. And I'll see you again next year. I love I love that part of touring.
Wow.
But it's not hard. It's the greatest when you're on a bus and like not driving yourself, which I've done plenty of driving myself, but like once you're on the bus or beyond a couple planes or whatever, it's easy. Your hand is held. There's unlimited everything every day. You know, it's
So in other words,
all we do is watch comedy and throw frisbee and drink a little bit of wine and have a blast.
and I hear during the morning you guys do a lot of workouts.
We do, yeah. We do a truck workout. One of the trucks will get cleared out and they'll set up a small gym with like a treadmill, yoga mat, heavy punching bag, some weights, um, and maybe one dinky little fan. And it's like 110 degrees in Austin in
Wow.
August. And you're like, okay, we're gonna go do a truck workout today. We're gonna sweat it out. So by the time we hit the stage, we're all exhausted.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
and one other thing, since you also said that it's not as stressful, that means that there should be no excuse for any musician to ever be rude to a fan or not sign something like that if
Oh
given a
yeah.
chance.
Of course. Yeah, yeah, of course. With Train, it's so about Pat. He makes it about us, but the fans are not concerned. Like I can walk around at a Train show. I'll get recognized a little bit at a Train show, but Pat's the guy and he's really good to his fans and good about that stuff.
Interesting. Wow.
I
And
don't take photos or sign anything, but just because I'm not asked.
so if I ask you in Indianapolis, you will.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
take
Are
me
you coming
through.
to the show?
I hope so. I hope to be able to
Cool.
make it. Amphitheaters, I'm always very kind of cautious about until like the week before with rain or
Oh
things
yeah.
like that, or
Mhm.
wind, because amphitheaters are just so much different than theaters when they come to things like that.
I
So
think if I'm remembering the indie one, most of it is covered. If you're on the lawn, you might be. exposed, but most of it is pretty nice and covered.
Yeah, no, Rudolph is a nice one, but
Yeah.
I always kind of wait until the last minute for many different reasons. But
Yeah, for sure.
I will let you know about that one.
I'm gonna need you to be there.
Take me through a little bit. What is your favorite venue to perform in?
Oh wow. I mean, they're all incredible. All these sheds, the amphitheaters, right? They all start blending together a little bit, but you get little differences in each one. Ruoff is cool. They've modernized the backstage. Um, I think the first time I played there, it wasn't, and then the next time it was like fully done up. So I do remember that room. I have a lot of favorites. I mean, like, I've been lucky enough to play Red Rocks twice in my life.
I
Um,
hear it's not as good from an artist perspective because you're looking the way that the stage is and how everyone is up like that vertically.
but that's really cool. Like that to me is really cool. It's kind of
Okay.
intense. It's kind of intense because it does go straight up, and also there's no real barrier between the stage and the fans. They're kind of like starting right at the bottom of the stage, and then it just goes up. So that place is really cool. I had my parents met my wife's folks at that venue, so I have a really soft spot in my heart for that place. We just did Royal Albert Hall in London, which was like the most beautiful place in the world, and I really was wishing my parents were there because in the backdrop of behind us, it's usually a screen, but for this venue, for obvious reasons, because there's a giant, beautiful organ behind us, they didn't do a video screen. So there's just this beautiful classic organ that is, and I even like had a local person who was nice enough to bring me up there and check out the organ. I was like, this is a legendary room. This is a legendary instrument. I want to see this thing. So that was a recent one that I love doing. Bucket list venue for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then kind of another thing, only because of time, what advice do you have for kind of people who want to get involved with music? Um, Sorry about that. What advice would
Oh,
you have? I always like,
no.
that question towards the end.
Yeah, I'm always confused at how to answer that because in my case, I loved going to music school for about a year, and then I felt obligated for the next 3 years to graduate. And I'm careful about advising young people not to do that, not to go to school for it, but it is art at the end of the day, and art I feel like is an expression of life, and this is very philosophical of me, but like it's an expression of life, and in order to do art well that resonates with people, to me, it helps to go live life. Go through heartbreak, lose your brakes on the highway, do stuff that is life instead of being in a vacuum of people telling you what that is. I think both are great, and in my case, I took everything with a grain of salt and made sure to learn it and commit to it, and then promptly when I graduated, remembered to forget it and learn the new thing that I'm learning from the actual world. I think that's lost on a lot of young musicians. So yes, go to school if that's your calling, but in the case of music or art, where a degree is not required, maybe skip it if your gut is telling you you need to go and do life.